friends. We are here seeking truth, continuing the Christmas story. And, we talked about prophecy last time, and it was just so cool to see, throughout the whole entire Bible, we see prophecy. We see God just has his hand in it this whole entire time.
Yes.
And then we get to this part, which is his birth.
Yeah.
And, we hear it year after year, and sometimes we get, just so used to it, the telling of her, Gabriel telling her that, she's having the baby, and then they have, the travel to Bethlehem, and then they're finding a room. There's no room at the inn. I always think of the little Christmas play that everybody always does, and it's like, hello, is there any room? No, but we have a stable. So,
yeah.
So yeah, and how do we keep it truthful and keep these truths, but also supplement it and keep it I don't want to say new.
Well, this is what I want to say. I wanted to use the word keep the awe.
Oh, keep the awe in it.
The awe in it. The not fresh and new, but just some other, nothing that's not in the Bible, but just to keep us understanding more and more how we came to the birth. Just like last time we talked about, why do we even need a Savior? Why did we need Jesus?
Yeah, just figuring out how we can remind ourselves just how awesome and amazing it is.
Yes.
Because
it's
it
more
really
than,
is.
It was more than just, his birth, which is the major point. But there was a lot that happened before to get to that point.
Oh, yeah.
And Jesus had, or God had a plan, and we know that. He had a plan from the beginning. He made a covenant with Abraham about, as many family,
descendants
as the stars in the sky, the sand, on the ground, and then you have Jacob, there was a covenant with him, and then you have David, who he said it would be in the line of David. So those are all ancestors that come down, and there's so many of them that even in between, and there were women that were a major part of that. Tamar, a great story. Also you've got Ruth, an amazing story, of redemption, right? And almost just like you were talking about Esther.
Yes, yeah, it kind of, a lot of the stories that we get to, I should say life experiences,
yeah.
that we get to see in the Bible from these very real people, that their lives paralleled Jesus's.
Yeah.
How, like with Esther, we have a king that was ruling over the Jews, and he was trying to find a new queen that was going to be, submissive, all that stuff, and whatever.
The all in all, right?
Yeah, exactly. The little arm candy.
That's right. Arm candy. Yeah, trophy wife.
And Esther gets in there, and she is a Jew, and she, risks her life to come to the king, because if you come to the king without being called, you're done for,
Right.
And she had gained so much favor with him, and ends up saving her people.
Right.
Where we have Jesus's life, we're under a tyrannical rule of, Satan, really. Yeah. And he comes and he is able to show us how to live and to save us from all of that.
Yeah.
And, along with Esther, we have, Joseph, we have Boaz to Ruth.
Yeah.
Even Ruth to Naomi.
Yes.
Yes. And I
so
think it's just so cool.
Yeah, there's so many life experiences that brought the line down to Jesus. And so I just wanted to touch base on a couple of them, and that was Joseph, his dad, earthly dad, I should say, not his dad, and you're going to read some verses that's going to tell us about all that, but he was in the line of David, and it's just amazing. He was, to just see how it all pulls together from one to another. And, Ruth was married to someone else, and her husband died, and then they weren't even in the country where Boaz was.
Right.
So then they went back, she went with her mother-in-law back, and then she was redeemed by a family member that, so I don't know. It's just so funny how all the life experiences brings it together to make it all come together to the Messiah.
It can only
the
be
Savior.
God.
It can only be God.
All things work together for good.
That's right. For those who love the Lord, right? And Mary, I had to really think about Mary being in the line, and actually she was in the line of, it's in the line of Judah, right? I mean, it comes down from, okay, who was Judah's? Leah and Jacob.
Leah and Jacob. Yeah.
Leah and Jacob had Judah, and he would. Yes, that's right. And then we come down to down, and we get to Jesus. But Mary was also a part of that. She lived in, Nazareth, the city of Galilee, and that was a part of the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
So she was also a part of that line, and that's why God could use her, you know? And, just all these little things tie together. And then we talk about Elizabeth. Of course, she also was, she was in the line of Aaron, which was next to Moses, which was, comes on down. You continue to come down to that. And then we talk about, what, you had said in the last session about Zechariah and the prophecy that was given with him and Elizabeth and John that would come from that.
Right.
And, when you're going to share some verses here in a minute, but when Mary finds out about this and she goes to her cousin Elizabeth and she walks in, and John, who was, as was said in prophecy, he would be the foreteller of Jesus coming.
Right.
Well,
he paved the way.
He paved the way. As as an adult later on into the Bible, listening to the life experiences of him, but initially Elizabeth was pregnant, like 6 months, I think. They kind of
it was around there.
Yeah, and the baby. When Mary walked in, the baby leapt, it says. So have you ever felt the baby flutter or kick? Well, you haven't yet.
Not yet.
You haven't yet, but you're going to. And so when that happens...
That's prophecy.
Just saying. Yeah. Oh dear. And then, and so then, I don't know, I just love that little piece of the story because it's so amazing that, she probably didn't even realize, she knew she was going to be pregnant. She was pregnant at that moment in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yes.
She didn't know when that was going to happen, and then just,
and she walks in and she's pregnant.
Already notices.
He knew. And then later on down the line, he talks about, there goes the man, there goes the Messiah, right there. He's walking down the
Sandals
road.
I'm not even worthy to tie.
Worthy to tie, that's right. And so I just love that part of it. That's such an exciting part. So that's kind of how it's all tied together. God used all these little people.
Yeah, it feels like random strings, but he weaves it all together.
Weaves it all together. It's all woven together to bring about a Messiah.
Yeah.
That's right. The atonement for sin, a fulfillment of prophecy. Right. That's what you just said. And so anyway, I want you to read the verses that kind of give us that, the setup.
Okay.
What you were talking.
So she has been espoused to Joseph, meaning that they did not come together until after the birth of Jesus.
Right.
And they're traveling now because in Luke 2:1-6, it tells us there was a decree sent out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. So when we want to complain about where it started, there you go. Everyone to your own city.
Yeah, at least we don't have to do that anymore.
That's right. We have to go to our own city.
Travel.
There'd be a lot of stuff going on.
And here was Mary, great with child. Assuming about the 9th month because she gave birth when they got there. It was a 5.5 mile trek, which I think she got to ride on a donkey. But it was a week-long journey to get there with somebody so far along. And
can you imagine riding on a donkey?
The roads, that they had were probably paths and things like that.
Yeah.
And when we imagine Israel being like the size of New Jersey, it kind of puts in context, when they had to travel from Galilee area, Nazareth area, into Bethlehem. That was a week-long journey. Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem because that's where he had to go to register for his city. and Bethlehem means the house of bread.
Mm.
So give us this day our daily bread. I
Yeah.
mean, it just kind of all comes
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And when they got there, because of all this registering, I'm imagining that every little inn that there was
Every corner.
full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no room for them. And it does tell us in Luke 2:7 that she brought forth her firstborn child.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrapped him in swaddling clothes and she laid him in the manger. And because there was no room for them in the inn.
Yeah.
And in ancient Israel, the mangers were made out of stone, and they were just used for the feeding and the watering of animals. Today, what that place looks like from the research that I saw was that part of where they think he was born is now in a Palestine area. So you can travel there, but you kind of go through like a border control, and you get over there, and they have rebuilt this like temple over it, and there's a little place that says this is where it happened, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's kind of neat that it's
Yeah.
Set
it's
aside.
still
And it's still recognized as something that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
And they were saying, the rooms in those days and times would have been like this stable might have been a secondary room to a home, or it could have been like a basement area, but your animals were kept like separated from the family, but yet close by. I mean, they didn't have fenced off areas and all the barns and things that we have.
Right.
So it was a part of a dwelling, but separate for the animals.
Yeah.
So kind of a lowly, place.
Yeah. And I think, one of the thoughts that I had when I was contemplating all of this is that, for someone that was going to do so much for us, he was born, in a manger and with the animals, and you always think of animals as being lower than your, humans, but
I think too, God knows all things.
Yes.
But I think he showed again his protection of his son, because pretty shortly after, when he was a small child, the rulers of their day there was a threat. They were threatened by the name that he was given, King of the Jews. They were threatened by him, seeking to kill. So I think the Lord did it in such a way that it was a protection.
Oh yeah.
And for me, being somebody that's not royalty, I'm glad he spoke to the,
I know.
to the,
He was, well, one of the things he said to his disciples, he says, I didn't come to be served. I came to serve. And so if you think about it, being in the position that he came in, I mean, everybody can identify, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody can
I think
identify.
it helps us to identify with that,
Yeah. Yeah.
He
the
was
whole setting.
He was born to be that example and to show us that he lived a sinless life and everything, and he was out here with the rest of the people.
Right.
He
was
out
part
here
of
with
it. He
everybody.
was part of everybody. He was part of.
He had family. He had friends. He had things he had to do.
Right.
Daily, and he wasn't just a king laying back and just being fed grapes.
Yeah.
Because you don't always identify, and they don't always identify with everybody. And he identified with everyone.
Yes.
He understands everything that we go through.
Absolutely.
So, so I think we caught most of that, and I know that we want to talk about after his birth, because a lot happened after his birth that was pretty exciting as well. And I didn't know if there was any more verses. Did you want to share, or did you you touched on all your verses? And
I think that was it.
Okay.
The only thing was that it was, which we touched on, it was hidden from the powerful and the well-connected, and it was shared with like shepherds in the field,
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about that next, is the shepherds in the field. And
but I think even though it was lowly on the earth side, like a low-key announcement, Can you only imagine what it was like in heaven?
In heaven.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I know. It worked.
I
He's
mean,
here.
yeah.
Yeah. 10 toes, 10 fingers,
Yeah.
like kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So we want you to come again and listen and stay tuned for the third segment on Christmas. Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.